Hi, everyone. It's great to be back with a blue sky and sun and starting to feel like maybe summer is still out there as a possibility in this strange age of COVID. And on this Monday, a couple of days ago, I went to a nearby grocery store with my respirator mask on, making the flesh on my face feel pressed in. I had on my hat covering my hair and big glasses, and I had rubber gloves on, my standard COVID kind of gear. I was feeling hot and vulnerable and slightly afraid in this COVID world where everyone now is a potential virus carrier and therefore a possible lethal threat. And in that closed-in state of mind, I got out of my car and I headed forward, disconnected from the world around me on purpose, until I got near the front of the store. And there were boxes of fresh spring pink, white, yellow flowers, and they'd been set up right in front of the doors. I love flowers, and I just had to stop and look. And then I saw it. A beautiful, large swallowtail butterfly moving rapidly over the pollen tops of the flowers. I haven't seen butterflies around my Albuquerque home since around 2015. Not many bees either. So seeing this large, beautiful butterfly harvesting pollen in the middle of a supermarket parking lot suddenly gave me hope. Hope for all of us. Hope that COVID can be defeated as surely as that gorgeous butterfly has somehow survived what seemed like the end of butterflies here. Watch this swallowtail, think about its resiliency and its determination to live when there are too many asphalt parking lots and not enough flowers. It's there. It's us. It's life in a universe that could have gone either way, matter or antimatter. So we can't let COVID get us down. And I hope showing you this precious, exquisite swallowtail tonight, it will lift your spirits right now and always in memory. And in yesterday's New York Times, on the front page, is this headline: Oxford University group, earlier efforts provide edge in the vaccine race. Now I'm going to hold up the newspaper. I'm going to let my sidekick Chocolate down. He was playing with Fluffy, and Fluffy ran away to have him go. So this is a really important story. It says on page 1, above the fold, that in this case, scientists at the University Jenner Institute at Oxford had a head start on a vaccine, having proved in previous trials that similar inoculations, including one last year against an earlier coronavirus, were harmless in humans, and that has enabled them to leap ahead and schedule tests of their new coronavirus vaccine, and it will involve over 6,000 people by the end of next month, meaning the end of May, hoping to show not only that this is a safe vaccine, but that it works. Wouldn't that be something? Talk about another one chalked up in the hope and the positive and the bright spring category. And then today, Dr. Anthony Fauci announced that the drug remdesivir that I talked about over a month ago as being a possible treatment, quote, shows significant positive data. And medical experts are saying that remdesivir might reduce recovery time for some patients from 15 days to 9 or 10 days. And going forward with, let's hope, more and more positive news. this week, on Monday, April 27th, the Pentagon announced that it was officially declassifying 3 videos of UFOs taken by US Navy pilots in 2004 and 2015. The 3 UFO videos, now officially declassified by the Pentagon, have the same names used by Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy, who originally released these same 3 videos in December of 2017 and 2018 in collaboration with Lou Elizondo, former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program in the Pentagon, also known as ATIP. The videos are called Tic Tac or FLIR 1, Gimbal, which is the kind of support that you would put something on if it was going to be in a pitching and rolling area. That's what a gimbal is. And 3, Go Fast. Well, the Navy previously acknowledged the 3 videos 8 months ago in September of 2019. And for this week's release, the Department of Defense put out a statement that says, quote, DOD is releasing the videos in order to clear up any misconceptions by the public on whether or not the footage that has been circulating was real, or whether or not there are more issues to these videos. Well, the aerial phenomena observed in the videos remains characterized by the Department of Defense as, quote, unidentified, close quote. Even retired U.S. Senator Harry Reid sent out a tweet highlighting an April 27, 2020 CBS News headline that read, quote, Pentagon formally releases 3 Navy videos showing unidentified aerial phenomena. Senator Reid's tweet stated, quote, I'm glad the Pentagon is finally releasing this footage, but it only scratches the surface of research and materials available. This is from retired U.S. Senator Harry Reid. The U.S. needs to take a serious scientific look at this and any potential national security implications. The American people deserve to be informed, close quote. I couldn't agree more. And so tonight, I think it's important for all of us to see these 3 videos again. First, let's look at the gimbal video with 2 men reacting to the UFO on their jet fighter image display. This was one of 2 videos announced on Saturday, December 16, 2017, on the front page of the New York Times above the fold, along with a second, longer video called FLIR 1, or the Tic Tac, because the UFO was white and oval-shaped, like the little candy. And then, in 2018, To the Stars released a 3rd UFO video that they called Go Fast. Now tonight, I want to start with the gimbal and Go Fast. And then I want to share with you excerpts of my interview with Navy pilot David Fraver about what happened back on November 14, 2004, when he tried to approach an unidentified aerial phenomena, or UFO, in the sky south of San Diego, California. So here and now, let's go with gimbal, followed by Go Fast.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating. moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly!
On November 14th, 2004, the USS Nimitz strike group was stationed southwest of San Diego, California. The Nimitz and its various support ships, including the USS Princeton, which is a US Navy Ticonderoga-class cruiser warship with guided missiles and passive phase array radar, were there. The Nimitz was preparing for combat in the Middle East, and the USS Princeton had an unsolved mystery beginning in November 2004 and persisting for at least 2 weeks. UFOs played cat and mouse with the US Navy off the coast of Baja California. That the Princeton's fire control officer at first and his senior chief had detected several puzzling returns on their AN-SPY-1 Navy 3D radar system that includes a ballistic missile defense. Those radar returns came from at least 80,000 feet above, and the source of the radar returns were moving from 80,000 feet down to 20,000 feet, where the UFOs would hover for 2 to 3 hours before zipping back up. Some pilots saw UFOs drop down rapidly to only 50 feet above the ocean water in just seconds. Those craft were UFOs, also known as UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. But the Navy fire control officers called them anomalous aerial vehicles, or AAVs. Adding to the mystery was the fact that the UFOs were always over the same latitude-longitude spot, roughly 70 nautical miles southwest of Tijuana, Mexico. And that is about 80 land miles out into the Pacific. The SPY-1 radar that was tracking this mind-blowing UFO phenomena and its maneuvers in mid-November 2004 was at the time the most advanced and powerful radar on Earth. And the military men watching the radar were stunned as the UFO, quote, descended, hovered, and then zipped away at speeds and turn rates and accelerations that were faster than any known by friendly or enemy threat aircraft, close quote. And by November 14, 2004, at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, an operations officer aboard the USS Princeton contacted 2 airborne US Navy jet fighters from the USS Nimitz. The first Super Hornet F-18 fighter jet was piloted by Commander David Fraver, commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41. His wingman in the second Super Hornet was Jim Slate. They were in routine combat exercises 100 miles southwest of San Diego when the USS Princeton's radio operator asked the pilots to change their course in order to investigate an unidentified radar return observed by the Princeton's own radar. The morning sky was clear and blue over a calm sea, no cloud cover. When the 2 Super Hornet jet fighters reached the latitude and longitude that the Princeton had given them, there was nothing in the air on the radar. But in the ocean water below them, they could see, quote, a turbulent oval area of churning water with foam and frothy waves about the size of a Boeing 737 airplane. That was the area of the churning water. It had a smoother area of lighter color at the center, as if the waves were breaking over something just under the surface. A few seconds later, they noticed an unusual object hovering with erratic movements 50 feet above the boiling water, close quote. Here now, to describe what he saw firsthand, is U.S. Navy Commander David Fraver in excerpts from my June 2018 interview with him for Phenomena Radio. We will repeat some parts of the original FLIR 1 Tic Tac video throughout this audio excerpt.
Here's what happens. As we press out towards the cap, combat air patrols, a place where we would hold until the ship saw some type of threat aircraft, and then we would get vectored onto it. As we approach the cap, they say, hey, we're going to suspend the air defense exercise. We have a real-world tasking. I said, okay. They sent us out to the west, and they immediately start giving us bearing range and altitude. 270 for 60 miles at 20,000 feet. So it means he's west of our position. He's about 60 miles away, and he's at 20,000 feet. We don't know what it is. All they're seeing is a blip on their radar. So we start moving out to the west. We're telling them that we don't see anything, and we've got our radar set up. So we're scanning a piece of the sky, both left, right, and up and down between the two airplanes. And my wingman is on my left side over to the south as we proceed to the west. 40 miles, 270 at 20 miles. We're still not seeing anything on the radar. As we get out to the same point where our blip and their blip merge, we're basically in the resolution cell of the radar. So to the pilots and the weapon systems operators that are in the back seat, it tells us, get your heads out because now we have to find this thing. It's in the same piece of sky somewhere around us. So as we start looking around, we're looking out the right-hand side, and I'm like, what is that? And if you've ever been at sea, if you put something about 10 feet below the water in the ocean, and as the waves come up, they'll break over the top of it, and you'll get white water. It was crystal clear. There was light winds, so there was no white caps, which quite often out off the coast of San Diego, you get some pretty decent white caps. There's no clouds. It's just a perfect day. We noticed this disturbance, this white water, and all of a sudden we see this little white object. In your mind, imagine we're going to use a clock now. So the object is at the middle of the clock, and we're at the 6 o'clock position. My wingman is just to the south of me, and we're watching the tic-tac, and it's over this white disturbance in the water, and it's going north, south, east, west, north, south. It's just kind of moving around randomly. And what's interesting when we first see it is it's down low over the water, so about 50 feet. It's almost like a ping pong ball. So when it goes right, it can stop instantly. It goes back left. It can go straight forward. It can go back. It's just kind of randomly moving around.
And, sir, at this point, have you gone from 20,000 feet down to about 12,000 feet to get a clearer view?
Not yet. We're still at 20,000 feet. Trying to figure out what it is as we're looking at it. We get to about the 9 o'clock position. We're just going around the circle. And I'm like, I'm going to go check this thing out. And I get on the radio. I say, hey, we're going to check it out. And the other airplane decides, hey, we're going to stay up high, which is a good idea because now they're going to separate from us. They're still in visual sight. They can see us and the object. At the 9 o'clock position, I start to descend, and we get around the corner, and I get to about the 12 o'clock position. The object is still kind of pointed north-south. It turns, and now it parallels us. It kind of points east-west, and it starts coming up. So now it's mirroring us. It knows we're here, and we start our descent. And we start coming down, and it's coming up. So we get all the way around the circle back to about the 8 o'clock position, and the object is now at about the 2 o'clock position, and my wingman is up above. And I decide, well, I want to get close to it. So I cut across the circle from 8 o'clock and go to 3 o'clock, because at the rate we're moving, if the object is at 2 o'clock and it maintains its normal velocity, it's going to get to 3 o'clock about the time I start pointing at 3 o'clock, and that way I can join on it and see what it is. It's probably 3,000 feet below me, and I cut across from the 8 o'clock, and I go towards the 3 o'clock position. And as I'm pulling nose onto the object, I get within about a half mile of it, and it goes from left to right across my nose, and as soon as it crosses my nose, it rapidly accelerates and disappears. So I asked the wingman, well, where'd it go? It just literally disappeared. My wingmen, they don't see it at all. They're like, it's gone. Well, that was very odd. The object disappears. So we're kind of baffled to try and figure out what it is. So I decide, because it disappears and no one sees it, I said, well, let's turn around and see what was in the water. As soon as we turn around, pretty much right over the spot where the disturbance was, we just haven't been watching it. There's nothing. There's no white water to be seen as far as the eye can show. So I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So we turn again. As soon as we turn, the controller comes up and he says, hey, sir, you are not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cap point. Combat air patrols.
This is where you were going to go, the cap point.
Yes, that's exactly right. The cap point is somewhere around estimating 60 miles away, okay? And the whole time that's elapsed is maybe a couple of minutes for us to turn those jets around, and this thing appears 60 miles away. That's really fast. It's faster than we can go.
It must have felt eerie that what had just disappeared and the water has gone quiet now is exactly at the cap point that you were just going to go to, but now the object is there.
That is 100% correct. As a matter of fact, I remember telling my backseater, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty weirded out. At this point, I had been flying for 16 years, had 3,500-ish hours, a lot of experience, and never, ever seen anything like this. And we never see it again. We finish our training, and we proceed back to the ship. We have to do a debrief, so usually the junior crew members go down to what we call civic or carrier intelligence, CVIC, and they do a debrief. You know the ridicule is coming. The next crew from my squadron was getting ready to launch. We're telling them about this while they're putting their gear on. So the Wizzo decides that he is going to find this thing, and that's his mission for his flight, which ironically he does. He launches off, and they're driving out to a hold point, and he picks up a radar hit on his radar. He tries to lock it, and as soon as he tries to lock it, the radar gets jammed, so he's unable to hold the radar lock. He immediately selects the targeting pod, and he obtains a passive track on the object, which is the video that you see. When it goes to more of a gray screen and the object in the middle is kind of that darker gray / kind of blackish, that's the EOIR mode. That's the visual light form that you would do. It's a TV camera.
And from what was videotaped, at the end, it was in a white mode when it just suddenly goes so fast right off of the screen.
That's correct. The hardest problem is you'd have to determine the range between the airplane and the object. If you watch the video at the very end on the right corner, it says range 99.9. 99.9 means that the radar, which is going to provide the range, cannot get ranging information on the target. As fast as it went off, to accelerate from holding and then going off the left side is pretty impressive. For it to leave like that, that's a significant acceleration rate to just go off the screen that fast.
Right. Can you explain to an audience why what you guys were dealing with was not another plane?
Well, yeah, planes have wings. If you looked at it on an IR, a plane will usually have a plume on one side where the exhaust is coming out. Planes have control surfaces. This had no control surfaces. It had no known visible propulsion mode. On the IR, it had no heat. It was a uniform color throughout. When you get to the end of the video, you can kind of see it on the YouTube video. When we had the original stuff, you could see it quite well. Right before it flies off the screen, he's getting relatively close to it. You can see there's two small objects that look like little feet sticking out the bottom, but there's nothing on the top, and then it just accelerates. I don't know of anything that has an acceleration rate like that. You've got an object that we've tracked back in 2004 that could come from above 80,000 feet, tracked by one of the most sophisticated radars. It comes down, it hangs out at 20,000 feet for 3 or 4 hours, and then it just goes back up and disappears. And there was more than one of them. They were tracking multiple objects.
So those are confirmed as unidentified aerial phenomena now officially by the United States Department of Defense and the Pentagon and all that had in the beginning. Remember back in December of 2017, after the December 16th New York Times, even the Pentagon and some other departments were saying that there had been no official release of those videos. Well, what is interesting is the timing. I wonder why, given the fact that there was an effort in September of 2019 for the government to say, yes, these videos, the Gimbal, the Go Fast, and the Tic Tac or Flare 1, they are legitimate, they are real, and now they've been officially declassified as of this week. But what about the timing? I've been getting a lot of emails from people saying, do you think that COVID will now be used to either hide more things or perhaps open up more things having to do with UFOs and ETs because the world is so swamped Their attention is so taken by news and coverage in COVID that this might be a time this year of 2020, as schizophrenic as this seems, that we may get more and more releases around the Space Force and Mars and getting to the moon and bases, and it will sort of be balanced out by all the deflection to COVID. Well, in that same question about deflection, how much invisibility is now being used by our human military, mixed in the skies and in the planet with invisible technology that is by some other kind of intelligence, both working both here on the planet. The alien intelligence having worked in invisibility for millennia. The Americans and others, such as Russia and China, back engineering and working from apparently retrieval of technology over a few decades. And I'm going to dovetail that into an email that I received on April 28th. This is from a woman has a home in the Moreno Valley area near March Air Force Base in California. I want to share this with you. She and her partner, they are educated people. And as I read this, try to think if you were in her place, as I have shared some of the correspondence that I get about strange sounds and people not being able to see anything. What are the implications? Quote, tonight, April 28th, this is last night, 2020, I was in my jacuzzi reading and suddenly an extremely loud plane, jet, or helicopter engine sound began coming toward me overhead, it seemed. It sounded like it was about to make a crash landing into my neighborhood or the surrounding mountains. I live right at the top of the city at the base of the mountains surrounding Reche Canyon, and about 10 to 15 minutes from March Air Force Base. The sound was so loud that I could feel it, and the water in the jacuzzi began pulsing along with the pulsing whoosh sound like the helicopter blades, and I could hear the wooden fence surrounding my extremely large open-air backyard rattling. It only lasted 2 to 3 minutes, and as I searched the sky frantically, spinning around in all directions, there was nothing in the air that I could see for many miles. And then, abruptly, it went dead silent. It sounded like it was directly overhead and at peak loudness, and then instant silence. That was about 6:30 p.m., that would have been Pacific, right before the sun set all the way, so the sky was clear and highly contrasted with orange and light wispy clouds. Any flying object would have been highly visible. I was so confused and afraid by what I heard that I made my fiancé run out to me, and I was shaking like a leaf. He had heard it too inside over our extremely loud pool waterfall that was running at high level. Our many dogs were barking in response to the sound, and the TV was up high. But we assumed it must have been a circling helicopter, and said our home owners association is a main stop for local fire planes to collect water to put out fires here. So we get helicopters often, but this was not that sound. Even more disturbing to me is that this is not the first incident over me in the jacuzzi. In 2015, an aircraft similar to, but absolutely not the B-2 Spirit, suddenly appeared directly above our house with only a very low humming noise, and it was dead stopped in the air. and then slowly glided directly above me and right above our neighbors, 3 tall trees, and then slowly drifted away like it was idling in the air. And that was around sunset in our same house. I am very concerned that this has something to do with the real reason behind the COVID quarantine, and I am very concerned. I read that last sentence only because, not because I think that that's at all a reasonable conclusion, but that I'm getting so many sentences where people are saying they feel that something else is afoot, that the coronavirus is a box in which a lot of things are happening. But people are sensing that there's something else, either bigger, something coming, and I'd be very interested in hearing from all of you about that. And Peggy, I would love to get people's comments and questions now.
Hi, Linda. First, I'd like to thank everybody for their super chats tonight. So thank you, Moonbird, Parissa Tempest, Minnesota Folk, Mike Martin, Mr. Nice Guy, Jack Allier, Kiki Dombrowski, Priscilla Munson, and Alejandro Portillo. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. In the spirit of that amazing swallowtail butterfly, may we all take heart and keep expanding what we're trying to learn and do. And thank you for being here.
I have a great question here saying, how do you think that the latest released video confirmation will help disclosure of past cases? Do you think this will gain momentum?
It's a very good question. I have wondered it myself. Back when all of this first broke in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Politico on that Saturday, December 16th of 2017, I and so many others, we really did think this is going to be the breaking inertia to take it all forward and open. And I remember sitting right at my computer that morning early, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was Whitley Strieber. Linda, it's happening. It's on the front page of the New York Times. And I think a lot of people thought, oh, wow, finally. And here we are in 2020, and there have been spurts. And it's frustrating for those of us who have been exposed to people who have worked in the military, who have worked in the Pentagon, who have worked in intel agencies, to all kinds of special ops. And they know all about firsthand other intelligences. And here we are, 2020, surrounded by and feeling, I guess it's sort of like almost deranged by the COVID huge pandemic. And we still haven't been told that we're not alone in this universe, and it is crazy. So this is the third time now that there have been government comments about those 3 videos. The first being a pushback in December of 2017, when the New York Times and the Washington Post and Politico and then the news, all sorts of news departments had on Lou Elizondo and others from Tom DeLonge's To the Stars. And it felt like solid, credible, possible opening up. And then we've had stops and starts, but it is, it defies understanding for those of us who have been exposed to a lot about what is the real reason that our existence in a universe where there are other intelligences without question, why is that still considered some sort of a national security threat as we are in 2020? If anybody listening falls into the category of a whistleblower who has firsthand knowledge and you want to try to help answer my question, please get in touch with me through hard mail, Post Office Box 21843, Albuquerque, New Mexico 87154, or through ProtonMail, which is supposed to be encrypted and somewhat regulated in terms of safety, or Federal Express, and that takes communication with me by email. But this is such a time of discontent. This is such a time of people wanting to change the whole status quo of a pandemic planet. And sometimes when there's this much energy wanting it to change, that maybe there are ways that information can reach somebody, an investigative reporter like myself. So I throw that out there to you, and I'm curious if any of you in the human abduction syndrome category, have you had any vivid dreams? The dreams that are like real life, like this, but you open your eyes in them. Those are vivid dreams. Have any of you had really vivid dreams in which you think that some intelligence that you've had some kind of interaction with is trying to show you what might be coming? Because it feels truly like this timeline was exploded at the end of December, and that just like confetti, it's been coming down and falling into a brand new order, that the timeline is nothing like it was in December. It does have this visceral feel that we're now in something that is truly unknown. What is coming? Is there a timeline that can move without a huge future? So I would love to hear whatever you all may be thinking or seeing, and also the questions about what you personally are most interested in. I really welcome being able to dig into subjects that you are interested in. I always learn a lot. And so we've got a big smorgasbord in this time of COVID that we can all keep getting into and learning more. Okay, Peggy, what else?
A viewer asks, if these videos were already released last year through to the Stars Academy, why is this a big deal now?
Yeah, this is the question we've all been asking. December 16th, 2017, New York Times, front page, Washington Post, feature section, Politico. These videos, interviews with Captain Fraver, Commander Fraver, all of that was fresh, breaking news that went on for several weeks through television news when that broke. But the problem was, at the end of December of 2017, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, for reasons unknown, pushed back about these being legitimate. And then some people jumped in and said, no, it was a German company had it, and there were all kinds of arguments about whether this had been posted before, and it was whether created, and it was just chop suey. Suddenly was dumped on what seemed like a clean release. And then there was continual evolution as to the stars, and others kept trying to defend these videos. And it wasn't until September of 2019, so you go from December 2017 to September 2019, that there was a story about the Navy and in relationship with the Department of Defense, saying that these were in fact verified as being legitimate videos. And then this week comes official, they say official declassification. So whatever murky world that the videos were in 2017 in terms of should they be released, were they a threat to national security, what happened in terms of getting them out to the public, all of that now, this week, for the first time, has been like settled by the fact that it has been sanctioned, that these are now officially declassified. You can read Popular Mechanics did a wonderful, deep, long story citing emails and all kinds of sources. They did one in January and they've done one now, and it all goes into this whole issue of the videos and the whole backstory and why always the are they or are they not legitimate? Were they officially released? Could they be a government like they were produced to release because there's something bigger and more that they want to release, and this is sort of a way to condition people? All of that has been a murky confusion around these videos since December of 2017. And then the Go Fast, that small white that moves so fast, that Go Fast was released in 2018. And today, what is dominating the news, COVID, it's hard to get a signal through on much of anything else. So it's odd, the timing. And it may be because this is one of the ways counterintelligence and intel work. Sometimes important news gets released on purpose when there's a lot of deflecting other concerns, and then they can say, well, we made it public, you just weren't paying attention. So I don't know what more is coming in 2020, but the way this year has gotten off to a start with COVID and political instability, and even the question, is the leader of North Korea alive or dead? Why did somebody put out the glass coffin of the father and what looks like a glass coffin with maybe in it, but the government there, at least as far as I knew yesterday, nothing, there was nothing. So we are living on a planet, as I said, the timeline, it just doesn't even feel like there's anything out there very far, with tremendous sense of vulnerability and what's coming next. I hope, for the sake of justice, for the sake of Americans being able to look each other in the eye and other people on the planet, that we could finally say, yeah, we've been hiding extraterrestrials in their technologies since World War II because we thought the world would collapse, the stock market would collapse, religions would collapse, everybody would collapse if we told them that there are ETs and they have advanced technologies and they can get here from there, and they may even move timelines and they may travel in portals between dimensions, and I think everybody can handle it now. So now, what about another question?
Linda, a viewer wonders, some people say that black projects are 20 to 30 years ahead of what we have now. Is it likely that these are just black ops drones than a craft from another planet?
I'm assuming they're asking about Gimbal, FLIR, and Go Fast? Is that what?
I believe so, yes.
I defer to Commander David Fraver. I got to talk with him for 2 hours in that Phenomena Radio interview, and respect his experience very much. And when these pilots who fly things like those Hornet F-18s say, I have never, in my 16 years of flying, I have never seen anything like this. And he gave the reasons why, that there was nothing about the FLIR image that fit anything that we know as aerodynamic on this planet. And that the speed with which those objects were moving, David Fraver said to me when before we actually started the recording of that official Phenomena Radio interview in early 2018, he said, I feel so frustrated that there are people out there who say, you're being deceived. The United States has all kinds of advanced technologies that are 30, 35 years beyond where we are now, exactly the point of the question. And what you are getting in your F-18 Hornet imagery is one of our advanced technologies, and they're just playing with you. It's cat and mouse by our own government. It isn't anything that is from someplace else in the universe. Well, Commander Fraver said, what we saw was something that was able to move at least beyond Mach 5 or 3, somewhere in there. I think they thought it was moving around Mach 4 or 5 at some points, or faster, and seemingly stop, and some things might be on an angle rapidly, and said a human pilot wouldn't be able to sustain those kinds of speeds and stops and 90-degree turns. And in one of those videos, you've got that object, and then it does turns like that, and the two men are sort of stunned by what they're watching. So, no, I do not think that the current phenomena that has been recorded by advanced radar and other equipment in some of our fastest jets falls in the category of black technology of ours. And partly why I feel so strongly is if you jump all the way back to the end of the 40s into the early 50s and what was being described by military people then, and Len Stringfield, who wrote a very important book called Situation Red. If you guys have not read Len Stringfield's Situation Red, Google it. I knew Len Stringfield well, and we had long, deep discussions about so many different subjects. And he told me, looking right at me, he said, Linda, when I served in the Air Force, I knew that there was a standing order, secret, nobody was supposed to talk about it, but there was a standing order to physically bring down UFOs from the sky with some sort of weapon. And he said, and this is a Len Stringfield quote to me, we lost so many pilots trying to carry out that order, and it was rescinded. And then he and I talked about the different facets that those statements bring up immediately. Why? What had happened that the United States would have a standing order to have its military in planes try to shoot out of the sky something that was defined by Harry S. Truman and Majestic 12 and that entire period right at the end of World War II as extraterrestrial biological entities. That was a phrase that the Truman administration and those that followed used in their own documents. Why would we want to shoot them down? The implication, this is what Len and I talked about, that there had been what was considered to be hostile beams that melted our craft. But would shooting down something that was an advanced technology make logical sense? Why would we assume that we could do that? Len and I talked about, well, maybe it is that the government has some proof of some kind of allyship with one intelligence and that there's more than one, and some are not friendly. So that was a discussion a long time ago, which we've talked about here before. And maybe the implication was that we thought that we had backing, that if we tried to take down X type of craft versus not another type, that we were joining some political conflict that has a progenitor, has an origination point maybe outside of the solar system, and now the solar system is involved, which means Earth has been involved for a long time because there are other intelligences with geopolitical interests, concerns, and conflicts. What's amazing is that now we're at 2020, and I don't know anybody who actually knows the bottom line truth. I'm saying that seriously. I've had people tell me that this is the way it works, this is who is this and this and this, and this is what they want, and then you'll end up, something happens in an abduction or something else, and it completely contradicts some assertion by somebody who has had a military or a government or intel background. And it continues to be this complex, ever-changing, do we know who the players are at all? And if human bodies can be cloned and used as camouflage by various geopolitical conflicting intelligences, how would we ever know unless we had advanced intelligence that could be pointed at a human body walking around on the Earth, and we would know from some technology that had been proved to us, demonstrated to us, this is something else. That's how complicated this is. I just don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that we have other intelligences interacting with this planet and this solar system right now. But it's not in the way that humans relate to each other. And would the videos, if the whole planet became conversant with the backstory behind the 3 videos that I showed tonight, and then you go on beyond that and we start getting more videos that our government would stand behind and say, we are now confirming these are unexplained aerial phenomena or UFOs, would there reach a critical mass? Is that what they're waiting for? Test, see what the reporters do, see what the public's reactions, see what various professions, their reactions, then come out with something more. And maybe this year and this decade was always, that's the way I understood it, that by 2030, all of this should be opened up. But what will COVID do? Would it make governments tell the truth more or less? That's a good question, Peggy. Let's see what people think. Is COVID going to make governments tell us more honestly, sort of like Governor Cuomo in New York. I think he really, really tries to tell the general public the truth, unlike a lot of others. And we need people like that now more than ever, I think. And maybe COVID, strange, evil, cruel COVID, could maybe be pushing political forces that are going to have to completely reorganize all of their houses and do everything differently. And finally, maybe it would start tipping us toward way much more honesty between the public and the government. We certainly deserve to be told the truth, which is exactly what Nevada retired Senator Harry Reid said in his tweet this week. The American people deserve to know the truth. Yay. Amen. And I was a little late getting started, but Peggy, if there's one more question.
We have one more. Well, we have many more, but I have one here.
Okay.
If the government has a history of lying to us about alien existence, how can we trust anything that they say, or even trust that they're sharing with us all the information?
Welcome to my world. That is a question that I've had ever since I started my first week of investigating animal mutilations in the state of Colorado as director of special projects at the CBS station, which was then KMGH-TV. And I've told you all before how innocent and naive I was in so many levels that I even called up the Central Intelligence Agency in Langley, Virginia, saying who I was, where I was from, what I was working on, and that I wanted to know if I could get an interview with one of the CIA agents working the whole phenomenon in the state of Colorado in the West. I thought you could do that. And then this very, very, very cold female voice came on one of the many extensions that I was transferred to, being recorded, I'm sure, every step of the way. We do not make available any of our special agents or analysts working in the field. Just like that. And it was one of those paradigm shifts that all of us go through in life, depending upon what you do. The government at that moment was inscrutable and cold, and I did not know then, how do I find answers from government and intelligence agencies that should be the ones investigating animal mutilations? And in an odd way, it was that pushback, that wall, that made me want to persist, made me want more than anything else to find out how in the world do you take down a 2,000-pound bull and take an ear, an eye, the tongue, the jaw flesh, the genitals, and core out the rectum with no blood, no fluid on those excisions, dry, and no tracks around those bodies that were on dusty, dusty, dusty ground, no grass, without even having the tracks of the animal. And that's why sheriffs told me, Linda, right from the beginning in the early 60s, it was the lack of tracks. It kept us saying something's coming in and getting these animals from the sky. And they're taken up into the sky and they're returned from the sky. It's the only way you can make any sense of the trackless, bloodless animals. And right there, I've handed you a metaphor for exactly that question. How do you ever trust any political or government agencies that know that, as Sheriff Tex Graves told me, Linda, the perpetrators of animal mutilations are creatures from outer space. Well, he was a sheriff. You didn't find those statements coming from governors or senators or presidents or elected officials of other note. So, can you trust? What is that old saying? Trust but verify? Every single one of us in our life, we have to work at trying to push through confusion, push through political rhetoric. We have to individually always all be trying to get to facts, the pressure of facts and truth, as much as we possibly can. That's what I'm trying to do here each Wednesday. I love your emails and your letters. You are an intelligent and compassionate and struggling group of people. You're dear to me. I love you. And I'll leave tonight saying, I hope you never forget that black and yellow swallowtail butterfly in those flowers at the front door of a grocery store, surrounded by people in masks, afraid of microbes called COVID. And that butterfly was in joy, gathering pollen from those pink, white, and yellow flowers. I wish all of you, all of us, joy. God bless.